How much water would you have to drink to die? Which mathematician was the leader of an extreme religious cult that forbade its members from talking or eating beans? How did an episode of Friends create one of the most widely believed medical myths? The answers to these questions and hundreds more can be found in my new book, Facts That Aren't True. Link in the description.
Can I ask the expert a question, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
Please? Sure, thank you. Can you tell me, in your evolutionary idea, right? You start off as a single cell, correct? In your idea of evolution?
I have no idea what that means. I was a zygote at one point. Do you mean life on the planet was at one point single-celled?
Yes. Life began as a single cell, right?
We don't know that, but we don't know that, but it almost certainly could not have begun as multicellular before single cellular.
Okay,
well,
so
to clarify, even
the question is this, if I may, and this is what stumps the evolutionists right off the get-go. The first question:
Where
does one creature turn into another creature?
Does one creature turn into another creature?
Yes, in your idea of evolution, does one creature turn into another creature?
So there's this, what's it called? The law of phylogeny or something like that. Every organism that gives birth to another organism, that organism is always a member of its same species. Now, this does actually get really weird with bacteria because you can perform a bacterial transformation where you can take a bacteria and give it a trait that no member of its genus can express. Because bacteria are so incredibly simple, you can do that with them. They're unicellular. They don't have traits or phenotypes in the way we think of. So can a bacteria via horizontal genes transfer or what's it called? What the hell is that called? Not a transmutation, but there's different names for the way you can transfer genes back and forth between bacteria. I can't remember any of the others off the top of my head. But in that way, can a bacteria turn into a different creature? Well, kind of, but bacteria are a philosophical mess. I mean, they reproduce by binary fission. So when a bacteria splits itself in half, do you have two?
I didn't ask about a bacteria. Sorry to cut you off, but I didn't ask.
I know you didn't ask. I'm just trying to tell you that bacteria are very odd and our typical biological concepts don't strictly apply to them very well. And I'll just do the reproduction example real quick. It's only going to be 15 seconds. When a bacterium divides, are there two of the exact same bacteria? Or does the original one cease to exist and it's two new ones? Or is one of them the original and the other isn't? It's actually kind of impossible to answer. It just depends on what your philosophical take on it is.
Well, I don't think it's so much philosophical because if you believe you started off as a single cell, right? This is where I stump all evolutionaries, right? This is where they double speak, right? So how could you go from a single cell to me and you without one creature turning into another?
Wait, maybe I can clarify.
No, not you. No, not you, bro. I'm not interested in anything you have to say, unless anybody else is, but we're talking to the host now.
Sure. Jeez. I explain because he's asked me this before, and I know.
No, I don't want you to explain it, bro. I want the host who's hosting.
Let him go back and forth with Peterson.
Sure. I appreciate the attempt, but so evolution, you're saying evolution can't happen unless one creature turns into another creature. So if I say that, no, that's not how it works, then according to you, evolution is false or could not have happened. That's really silly. We can demonstrate this by way of analogy.
Don't gaslight me, bro. I asked you a simple question. Either you can answer it or you can gaslight me.
Well, I'm not gaslighting you. Into a dog. If that's your interpretation of what's going on, then Spanky bless you. But anyways, I can demonstrate the...
Did you hear that answer of the expert that came here? Did you guys hear the answer he just gave me? I love it, man.
I'm not even remotely close to done giving you an answer because things aren't as simple as you pretend that they are. So sorry that you think it works that way, but it doesn't. So by way of analogy, I can demonstrate that the demand you're placing on evolution is completely false because we can just compare other things that change over time, like language. Every single child that's ever been born to any parent speaks the same language as its parents, unless it's born deaf or something weird. Yet languages change over time. So when did Latin become Portuguese? Well, not overnight.
You think deaf people are weird?
Not overnight, not in one generation. It happens bit by bit to the point where the real description of it is it never happens in one instant, but when you separate periods of time, when you separate events that are causally linked in time, and you take a look at those causal events across vast stretches, you see that over here, it's completely different than over there. Or an even simpler example would maybe be, when does a zygote turn into an adult? Well, it doesn't, but they're causally linked.
So that's your explanation? Everybody's satisfied with that explanation?
Probably not you, but...
Pineapple can turn into a dog?
My name is Kent Hovind, and dogs produce dogs.
Yeah, he's doing the Kent Hovind thing, is what he's doing.
You guys are ridiculing it yourself, man. I don't have to do any work here.
You're an idiot.
Yes.
One of the funnest debates I've ever had, or conversations.
SE, I can prove to you that according to you, your line of questioning is completely fallacious. Do you think that modern dogs, like the English Bulldog or American Bulldog, whichever one that is as your PFP, do you think that they are derived from wolves?
That's what the story goes, yeah.
Do you think so?
I'm not quite sure, to be honest with you. I have no reason not to believe it, but if you were to put a gun on my head, I would tell you I'm not sure. It appears that way.
Okay.
But, I wouldn't fight it.
Sounds like you think it's more likely to be true than false, and that's totally fine. That's an honest position to take on something. When did wolves turn into bulldogs?
I don't know. And you know what? I'm glad you asked me. Let's see if you're going to be equally honest with me, okay?
We're going to stick on the bulldogs thing and before I let you change it to something else.
Can I ask you? You asked me a question. I answered you. Can I ask you one before I answer you this one?
No.
I promise I will let you ask me whatever you want, but I don't want to get distracted on some sort of tangent. So I'll just actually make this really simple. Probably only needs to be one question. Did a wolf ever give birth to a bulldog?
I don't think so.
You are correct. That's not how it works.
Congratulations.
And the way evolution does not work this way. An organism gives birth to a different organism.
Bro? Are they both canines?
SE, what's up?
Are they both canines, bro? You scared?
Well, answer his question if you like. I'll take a back seat.
Sure. Are they both canines? Yes. In that specific example, they are.
Okay. So they are the same thing then, huh?
No, they're not. One's a bulldog, one's a wolf.
They're not canine. They're not both canines.
If you want to expand it to a broader category, then it would make perfect sense that they would both be canines. But if we go at a
do you ever see a feline turn into? You ever see a feline become a canine?
Do you actually think that biologists think that happened?
Well, if everything started from a single cell organism, something would have to occur. Changing from changing from whatever that is, which is self-reproducing, to now have to bang private parts together and find a mate and everything. It makes absolutely no sense for survival.
Maybe you should spend more than 3 seconds thinking about it. Maybe you should read one book about it instead of browsing answers in Genesis.
No? Is that all you got? Is ad hom?
These aren't ad homs. These are accurate descriptions. And even if I was just insulting you, an insult is not an ad hom.
I have an answer.
So anyway,
single-celled organism is a clade, but you can't.
Peterson, I don't know if you've been around this. I don't know if you've been around this theater for very long, but these guys have a huge problem with essentially fallacy Tourette's. Doesn't matter what you say, they're going to say it's a fallacy, and it's most likely going to be used inappropriately.
I asked the guy if a feline ever became a canine, and he would say, yeah, no, that's never happened. So for a canine to be another canine with different attributes doesn't explain evolution, bro.
Yes, it does.
It absolutely does. By definition, it is evolution.
Example, dude.
Dude, that's the worst example ever.
A horrible example, dude. It's still a canine, dude.
So all you're doing is showing that you have no idea about cladistics or the law of monophyly.
Okay, so you're saying all the information. No, you're saying all the information is already in the canine for him to eventually speciate into a bulldog, and therefore evolution because the information existed first. No. What are you talking about?
I'm not sure that anyone said what you just said.
Yeah, there had to be information. Was the information in the wolf or not?
Let Planet Peterson answer.
So we'll go about this by inquiring what your personal beliefs are, and then we'll see how your own personal beliefs just absolutely shatter your own criticism. Do you think that Noah's flood happened?
I'd like an answer to my question.
That's fucking cute that you think that that's how it's going to work, because it's not. Do you think that Noah's flood
you're
happened?
Garbage, bro. I will destroy
why would you attack someone's faith in relationship to a science? It doesn't make any sense.
Who did that?
Unless you're comparing the two as if they're similar, like you have a faith and a belief in it. It's
kind of weird, man.
Yeah.
Who said anything about somebody's faith?
Yeah, that's part of his faith.
It's about standard of evidence, I think.
I didn't attack his faith in any way. I asked him if he thinks Noah's flood happened.
You're saying were you there? Were any of us there? It's part of his faith to believe in that.
Yeah, so are you saying you just have a belief system in evolution because the Bible... Hold on. Do you believe the Bible doesn't give you a good enough explanation, therefore evolution? Is that your argument?
I just want to point out that what the other person said was a hardcore, like, social justice warrior safe space way of shutting down a conversation.
Not an argument, dude.
No, it's called... You want to call people out,
Torah,
for being fallacious, but there you are, like, filleting. Fellatioing.
Just stick to the topic, bro. It's pretty lame the way you're arguing.
Talk shit about scientists all day.
Torah, do you think that Noah's flood happened?
Yes, I do.
Okay, how many species of frog were on the ark?
I have no idea. What do you mean of frog? Is that a species?
A frog is an animal. So how many species of frog
is that an amphibian, or is that an amphibian, or is it just a frog?
You don't know what a frog is?
I would imagine it's an amphibian.
You are correct.
Okay, so yeah, there was two of the unclean animals. Yeah, 2 pair.
Okay, 2 pair. So there were 4 total.
No, there was no, just 2. Sorry.
Okay.
Why are you bringing religion into this? Bro?
What is a kind?
Well, according to the scripture, it's different than what science declares it as. Just like you were saying that language is subjective and how it can change over time, so could categorizing categories of animals based on features.
So I'm just going to ask...
Is that not true?
I'm just going to ask the same question. What is a kind? If you were going to compare a kind to something in our taxonomic bracket, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species, where would you put it?
What do you mean? If I were to find a kind, what do you mean? Can you expand on that? I don't understand what you're asking.
I'm asking you, what do you think a kind is in the biological sense? You obviously don't think it's a species because you think there were only 2 frogs, so it can't be a species. So what do you think is the closest thing to what a kind is? Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, or species?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know the answer. I'm not that technically involved in the. I would say a kind is like something that can reproduce with something similar to itself and gain offspring that are similar as well.
Okay,
and
well,
it's
that's
similar
a
to the genus.
species.
That's that law where they can't.
Yeah,
where
so
they
you're
stay within their genus.
Speciation occurs. We
What-
observe speciation. So
Yeah, but a cat, felines stay felines. Yeah.
that's not
there
a
we go.
species, though. That's a
So
clade.
here's the fallacy in what you're saying. According to your own belief, what you're saying cannot possibly be true. Because if there were only 2 frogs on the ark,
I don't think there were frogs on the ark in the first place because
You said that there
a
were.
creature that can survive in water, and none of the
Cora, let
water
him finish,
creatures were
So
Let him
on the
finish.
somehow,
Let him finish.
somehow you saw where this was going ahead of time, and then you just changed your argument because you saw that you were going to get debunked.
Well,
So I'll just tell the
Can't you
audience.
just use other?
I'll
Can't
just
you
tell
just
the
use
audience what
something else?
happened here. So
Is it just frogs?
we could.
Couldn't you just use something else?
Whatever animal, bro.
You're the one that
Okay,
you
cow.
had no problem with frogs. So we're going with frogs. Here's the problem, everybody. In order for him to believe this, he has to believe. Here, let me look something up real quick.
Beetles make up like 90% of the animal
You're not
kingdom.
going to
You could
debunk
do
the
beetles.
flood with whatever you present.
Okay.
I doubt that.
When you said a canine always remains a canine, for animals that you believe would have been on the ark, the equivalent of becoming something else, because that's in the level of the family, the equivalent of a violation of what you just said has to happen, because there are 9,000, for example, species of frogs, but there are different families of the frogs as well. So what you say, that this imaginary biological law of something always remains in its kind, is literally false according to what you believe about the world. You believe that a tiny fraction of the over 1 million species we have on the planet today radiated into all of them, which means that a change on the level of canine, on that same type of level, would have to occur.
I can understand what you're saying, and I will grant you what you're saying. However, my disagreement here would be I am not the God, so I don't know what he defines as a kind or what he is descriptive to tell Noah which ones to bring on. So maybe
Then
you
why
got
debate
me
or
in the
talk
fact
about
that I don't
anything?
have God-like knowledge, and that's fair. I didn't understand where you're going with the frogs. I still don't really
I don't
grasp
get it either.
exactly what you're saying about the frog.
So you're just telling me you have an unfalsifiable belief, and so I don't know what
Yeah,
the,
that's what the truth is,
I don't-
bro. The truth is unfalsifiable. Did you know that?
So that's a circular argument when you try to specifically apply it to a worldview. So I don't understand the point in you participating in any conversation when you say this is what I believe and it's not falsifiable. So I don't understand why anybody should participate in a conversation with you or why you participate. It seems,
you're not
it
looking
seems a
for
little
the truth?
odd.
That's the
You're not
second time he
you're not-
tried to do that.
Yeah, you're
You know
not
that.
looking
You know,
for
the owner
truth
of this
at
server
point.
is also a Christian, by the way. Just to let you know.
Yeah, and you're claiming at this
And-
point, in order to engage with people, you have to present something unfalsifiable. Are you saying we can only engage with non-truths?
What an idiotic statement.
Do you agree the truth is unfalsifiable?
No.
If something is true, is it there are things that are true that are contingent. So it's not necessarily that's falsifiable, but it can become false.
Yeah, but we're talking
future.
about the ultimate. Yeah, but we're talking about the ultimate non-contingent necessary source for intelligibility.
What?
No, whether or not there were frogs on Noah's Ark is not the thing you just said.
You
But
asked me
that's
for
the
God-like
thing you said
knowledge.
where your position on it, according to you, just can't be false, or you'll just change your position in real time to preserve that worldview of unfalsifiability that you have. So
No, he's just
That's not
pointing
an-
out
that's
you
not
don't
an
have
answer,
the
dude.
I'm
truth.
not interested
Alright.
in a theological discussion. I'd
This
rather
is
just
not-
talk
this
about
is
Oh,
not-
so
not-
you
you
don't
don't
have
have
so you do have evidence for
brought this
God.
shit
You
up,
would
man.
just like to
You brought it on
avoid the
yourself.
evidence, right? So
I
you
brought up
just presented
frogs.
an argument saying in the beginning that you said I don't see any evidence for God, but then you just said I'm not willing to have a theological discussion. Is that because that there might be evidence
Because
for
we're
God
talking
there?
about frogs.
You
Yeah,
brought up
what's your
frogs,
point
brother.
about the frogs, bro? You didn't
Yeah, you
even
brought
like.
it
I
up.
don't even understand your point. Are you saying those
Well, I
frogs, if he
explained
brought
it
on
very
different kinds and
clearly.
he explains kinds to be something different than you explain kinds to be, that it's an
No, it's according to
impossibility
you.
for all the frogs to get here? And are you saying that God, the Creator, couldn't have made those frogs by divinely intervening?
Yeah, so if you're just going to say, even if you prove me wrong, I'll just say, well, magic could have happened
Not
that
an
made it
argument.
work.
This guy-
You
Then there's
granted
no
the
point in talking
worldview.
about
You
anything.
you granted the worldview.
And
You're
I sh-
trying
and
to
I
do an
showed that it's a-
internal critique.
Yeah, and I showed a contradiction, and then what you did was you just changed it to, oh, well, I don't have that particular belief.
What
Now
was
I'll just retreat
inconsistent
and
in
say
what was
magic
inconsistent
happened,
in the
therefore I
worldview?
can still be true. So you don't
What
have
was
you
inconsistent?
don't
What's
have a
inconsistent?
principled position on
Hold on.
anything except
Tor,
the
let him talk. Hold on.
source of your claims. And that's
So what
just
was
not
inconsistent?
interesting. The frog, that no variation in kind can happen.
No, that's not the argument, dude. Hold on, bro. Let me just.
I'm the one that made the argument,
Give me
so
a minute.
I do
Give me
know
a
what
minute
it
with
was.
this guy.
The
But yo,
girls
listen,
with
listen.
blonde-
This
girls
is
with blonde hair debunked something. This guy, this guy is weak. Man.
so scripturally, when God says He made everything after its own kind, it's kind of hard to define what a kind is, right? Because we're not the arbiters of truth, and like the closest thing to a kind would be a species, right? But species, the way it's defined in
Then
modern
that's
times, it's
false.
kind of arbitrary, right? How do we define a species? It comes down to whether they can mate or not. But there's animals that aren't viable; they don't have viable offspring, and if they do have a viable offspring, their offspring seem to be infertile, like ligers.
Even if
right?
you
and certain donkey and mule horse mixes, they don't have viable offspring, even just one generation. So are they all of a sudden a different species?
You see what happened here?
even if
Ryan?
you take that,
Hold on, bro.
no,
I was speaking.
he's talking to me, and I'm going to respond to him, and you can wait your turn. Even if that's the position you take on kind, then that's completely untenable with believing that there actually was an ark and two of every kind on it, because there's millions of species alive. That boat could
Don't even
not
have the narrative
had
correct.
could
Don't
not
even
have
have
had
the narrative.
Wait a
of
second. Hold on.
species
Just get a
on it.
minute. I gotta go anyways. I just want a minute with you.
Yeah, so that boat could
Go
not
ahead.
have had every species on it, even if we ignore fish and whatever stays in the, like, could have stayed in the water. You're not going to get all the other land stuff and everything on that boat. That's not possible. And also, if you take that worldview, we just know that it only says two. Well, for that case, that would be, well, yeah, I guess actually it would stop at, you couldn't cram
That's
them
7
all
pairs
onto the
of
boat.
clean animals.
Yeah. So there were 7 pairs
That's
of clean
worse.
animals, and only one or 1 or 2 pairs of unclean animals.
Yep, that's
and
worse.
There was no amphibians, no aquatic life. They didn't need aquatic life for amphibians. Those animals
but what about
they can survive in the flood.
You don't know that.
Now
well,
we can
first of
have.
all,
Hold
that's
on, dude.
completely
Hold on, bro. Hold
false,
on, bro.
Because
Bro,
you
just give me
can't
a
put an
second, dude.
amphibian in salt water.
Okay.
Bro, all right,
And
dude,
it doesn't
all right,
say
all right.
that.
Just
You're
hear me out, dude.
You're
All
just
right.
using
Oh
that
my
as a rescue
gosh.
device.
No, it
right.
actually talks about all the animals, and it doesn't talk about Noah bringing in whales or
It doesn't talk
salmon or
about him
anything like
bringing
that, dude. He didn't have
anything
aquarium. It doesn't talk
except-
about him having aquariums on the ark or insects or anything like that.
It doesn't say
Just hear me
anything.
out for a second. Just hear me
the
out
only
for a
thing
second.
we
Just hear
know
me out
what
for a
was
second.
on there was a dove.
Just hear me out, dude. I just need 30 seconds, bro. Right?
Yeah, go ahead.
So you can have all felines have one common ancestor. All canines have one common ancestor that Noah brought in the ark. Just one pair, dude. And from that one pair, you can have all the variety of canines that we have on the earth today. That's not evolution, dude. The genetic code is already the genetic code already has the potential. It's not due to genetic mutation or anything like that.
Buddy,
Genetic, bro.
You have no idea what you're talking
within
about.
within the code itself, the genetic expression, the potential for the genetic expression is already there. So from a Chihuahua to a Great Dane, all the genetic expressions already locked inside of the genetic genome. It doesn't have to mutate or anything like that. It's already present there by design. But the thing is, with everything after its own kind, it can the genetic expression can only get pushed so far. It can't turn into another species. Go ahead.
You literally believe that it did because how many canines were on the ark?
I just told you one pair.
So you do believe, so there's more than one species of canine alive today. So what you just said, even you don't believe.
I don't see you say that, you can assert that with confidence. I don't believe that there's more than one species of canine in the world today.
Somebody the other day was bringing up the same species.
Dude, all canines are the same species.
That is such
whether it's a Chihuahua,
that is
a Great Dane,
an insane
an Australian
statement
Shepherd.
to make.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the size difference,
buddy.
It doesn't matter the different types of genetic expression. Their fur. It has nothing to do with the genome. The genome is the same. It's still a canine.
Buddy, wolves have more than twice as many chromosomes as foxes do, and you're telling me they're the same species?
Hold on, let me verify that.
What the hell?
Last time, this other guy said that the African spotted dog had more chromosomes, and it was a different species, right?
African spotted dog.
Yes, it is a different species, and it doesn't even have the same ancestor as canine, so it's not a canine.
No,
it's not a canine.
No,
yes,
it does have the same ancestor. It's just higher up in the clade.
No,
right?
no, you can't prove that. You can assert that with confidence. The idea that the black spotted dog comes from the same ancestor as a Chihuahua. How do you know
Why are you laughing like a little girl, bro?
According to you, it's true. Because according to you, there was only one canine on the ark. So literally, according to you, it's
6
true.
years old, she giggles like that.
What kind of, like, how do you do that? How do you live like that? You don't know that they're related. You believe that they're related.
Don't get so excited, man. Just relax.
Listen, buddy, you believe in evolution without evolving. You can make this clown show up if you tried, man.
Just because
I love the data and the science you
dog,
brought up there. I love how you used data and science and logic and reasoning to argue your position, he said sarcastically. What's up, other dude? I can't speak. I don't know what those symbols are.
My name's Lion, but cool. Just because the black spotted African dog might look like a dog, right? It has a tail, it has 4 legs and paws, just like felines do, doesn't mean that it came from the same common ancestor. Just like hyenas, they look like dogs. They're not dogs. They're not canines, dude.
It's important to point out that obviously Lion's got this biblical worldview, and he uses the word, he's using species as kind. All right, so
yeah,
obviously,
I learned that aren't
dogs. I'm just pointing out the I don't think this guy, Eric, that's your name.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously he's sort of taking the Kent Hovind approach with it, right?
Well, what kind of dog do you have? What kind of fish do you have?
Lion just said that dogs aren't dogs.
No, I said the black spotted dog is not a dog, even though it's named a dog.
Dog
is not a
dog. So you're just saying you think it's misnamed. I mean, even I agree that some things are misnamed. For example, blue-green algae is actually bacteria, so that it's not algae, you know? There's a type of frog called the mountain chicken. That's obviously a pretty bad name. How is it that you determine if something is a canine or not?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. It's
done genetically,
right now, the way that
and African spotted dogs are more closely genetically related to dogs than any other form of life on the planet.
The way that we classify species right now is arbitrary, dude.
No,
a little bit. You can say the categories are arbitrary, but the relationships are not arbitrary. And according to the arbitrary category of canine, the African spotted dog is more closely related genetically to other dogs than it is to any other form of life. So it is a canine.
In your opinion, therefore, it is a canine by the mind of man. Do you agree that if there was a mind of God, there might be a category we don't know about yet?
Do you realize that's not an argument at all? That's like said nothing at all.
Yeah, all you did was say God might have opinions. I agree, and that doesn't prove anything about anything. Other than if a God exists, it can have opinions.
Your argument, the absurdity in your argument.
There is no absurdity in my
argument. Yeah, because you're assuming that this is an internal critique on the God world. So if the God does exist, that is a possibility in your mind. Therefore, your critique is absurd.
No, there's literally nothing wrong with the critique, because while the categories may be arbitrary, the relationships are not.
Yeah, and you're talking about the ultimate source for intelligibility, which might have some more information about those relationships that you don't have.
Oh, could you share it with me?
Yo, bro, hold on.
So you have
would I be able to see? You're not even listening
offer,
if you thought that
so
was
you
a
can
response.
shut up again. Thank you.
Yeah, you're done,
So
bro.
You literally
real quick. I looked up your
Go
your
ahead.
claim that foxes don't have the same amount of chromosomes as dogs, and you are right. They have less than half of the chromosomes that dogs have.
Yeah,
It says here foxes have 34 chromosomes while dogs have 78. So that to me means that they were never related. They never came from the same common ancestor.
Jeez.
Just because they look alike, right? For all we know, they could be more related to ferrets.
Yeah, you have evidence that
we
they
know
are.
how to do genetic testing for relatedness, and they are not more related to ferrets.
Yeah, and according to geneticists, we're related to bananas by 66%.
No,
and chimpanzees
we are not.
like 90.
No.
Yeah, dude.
No.
Look it up.
I have
All right,
looked
here,
at,
I'll put up.
I literally wrote a
All
book about this. I know where the thing about bananas came from. It came from journalists not understanding what was being talked about with it's a long story. I could tell you, but I'm telling you that we are not 60% related to bananas. It's a very unfortunate
And do you know that to be
All right, well, hold on. So
most of us are not that closely related to bananas. However, all right. I want to let some other people get in. So, no tanks. Did you want to get in?
Oh, nothing. No, I don't really even hear a topic to get in.
I wanted to say something.
Okay.
But thank you.
All right. Okay.
I actually have a question for Mr. Planet Peterson.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Well, let's let M Agent, since he piped up. So go ahead, M Agent. Go ahead and ask the question.
Yeah, I just want to ask Tora and the guys, what is a canine dog? Because there is no breed. Do you mean German Shepherd as a species?
I don't really get it. All domesticated dogs are members of the same species. It's like Canis lupus familiaris or something like that.
So
yeah, he was asking the other guy you were talking to.
What did they mean by canine? It has no meaning.
Well, canid is a family in the taxonomic hierarchy. So, I mean,
all right. So I have a genuine question here. If we take, would you accept a species as individuals that can reproduce viably?
Yes.
I mean, there are multiple different biological definitions of a species, and none of them are really wrong. It's just it's like philosophically kind of a mess. It's hard to like objectively pin it, but a group of closely interacting species that are capable of breeding and producing fertile offspring is a pretty good definition of species, but it doesn't work.
You meant like organism instead of species at the beginning there, right? You said a species that interacts. No, I was just clarifying. Because I was thinking about it recently, and the idea of there being species of prokaryotes, right? And they don't reproduce in that same way. So I was wondering if you knew how the species of prokaryotes was taxonomically classified.
At one point, I did know, I did a podcast episode on this a few years ago, and I actually had a laboratory scientist do that part because he knows a lot about that kind of stuff. I don't remember what the conventions they use for prokaryotes specifically are off the top of my head. Sorry.
Would it be like some kind of like genomic comparison, like a certain percentage of?
That's certainly going to be part of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I was just curious. Thank you very much.